Hey everyone, my name is Wedge and we're moving right along with our standard Kaladesh coverage. This week is full of standard deck techs of the top new strategies to help you stay up to date on what's going on. We've already talked about white-red vehicles and that deck is crazy strong. If you missed it and want to take a look, you can do that right here. Just boop, super easy. In this video, we're going to look at another aggro deck, but one that goes about aggro in a much different, more ridiculous way. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, remember to hit the like button. Helps out a lot. Red-black aggro in New Standard has already taken a few different forms, but after testing with the various successful lists from this weekend's SCG Open, I think I found the most consistent. Credit where credit is due, we're going to be teching the red-black aggro deck that finished 21st in the Open, piloted by Eric Hawkins. For what we know so far about this New Standard environment, this deck is tuned really well for it. Beginning with lands, we're looking at a simple spread. 4 Foreboding Ruins, 4 Smoldering Marsh, 10 mountains, and 2 swamps, 20 lands in total. We're talking really low to the ground here mana-wise. The non-basics are simply the best way to make red and black mana reliably. Have no choice but to run them, to be honest. Let's get into the meat of the deck now. 20 lands means there's even more room for craziness. Normally we would start with creatures, but our spells help to tell the story of the deck a bit better. We'll begin with a playset of Key to the City. This is the deck's spirit animal. Madness outlet for days, stops opposing blockers, and enables madness all at once, and when you untap it, you can draw a card if you want to. Talk about everything you could wish for in a madness deck enabler. Seriously, Key to the City is everything you want. Free madness outlet, hand refueling, and stops your opponent's blockers. This was designed for this deck. It's legit perfect for it. Anyways, this is the idea. We want to get damage in fast, and we want to use madness craziness to do it. With that in mind, the deck is running playsets of both Fiery Temper and Alms of the Vein. I shouldn't have to tell you that 1 red mana to deal 3 damage is good. Lightning Bolt is a thing, and in this deck, Fiery Temper is basically Lightning Bolt. Totally absurd. Alms of the Vein, while being a mediocre card when you cast it naturally, is crazy strong for 1 mana. 1 mana for a 6 life point change? Are you serious? That's awesome, especially in an aggro deck looking to get as much damage in as possible. The easier you make it to madness, the better Alms gets, and in this deck, Alms is straight gas. One of the biggest advantages to running a deck like this is that it gets to run Unlicensed Disintegration. Don't let anyone tell you different. This card is one of the best rewards for playing these colors. You get to demolish vehicles once they're accrued, and you don't have to lose any tempo in the process if you control an artifact, which is not difficult. Affordable, instant speed removal, especially in a format with this idiot running around, is never a bad thing, and you get to bolt them. This is one of the better cards in the deck, and that's why it's also a playset. Totally crazy. Creature time. I would say we would start at the bottom of our curve, but the deck straight up runs 16 1-drops. Not joking. This is way more aggressive than your average aggro deck, believe it or not. We'll start with our madness shenanigans. Insolent Neonate and Falkenrath Gorger, both playsets. Both very aggressive and both designed to support our madness theme with Key to the City. Falkenrath, while not triggering most of the creatures in the deck, does trigger the 8 vampires you're looking at right now, making for great madness targets in case you don't have any of your madness burn in hand. Also on a simpler level, the Neonate has madness and the Gorger is a 2-power creature for 1 mana. Both punish slow decks that don't develop their boards early. Good aggressors, solid creatures for this strategy. The deck also runs 4 Bomat Courier. This is a little construct that flew under a lot of players' radars, but it showed its true colors this past weekend, and in testing, it did not disappoint. 1 mana for a 1/1 with haste is but the second and third abilities on the card are crazy strong. So when it attacks, not when it deals damage, you exile the top card of your library face down. Not getting to look at it sucks, but what are you gonna do? That last ability does most of the work. It's only 1 red mana, and you get to discard your hand, which means more madness enabling if you want it, and you can refuel with whatever you exiled earlier. Of course, getting this late game is going to function as more of a madness enabler than a card advantage machine, but if you drop this within the first few turns of the game, you can rack up some nice card advantage in the exile zone. It may not seem like much, but this card does everything a madness deck wants. Enables the mechanic, gives the possibility of card draw, and does it cheaply. Sign me up. The last 1-drop in the deck is Inventor's Apprentice, a full playset. Now, this card created a lot of hubbub. Many players are split on whether or not this is good enough for an aggro deck. It looks like the consensus is that it isn't good in the white-red decks, but it is in the black-red decks. 1 mana for a 1/2 isn't anything to write home about, but becoming a 2/3? That's something I'd like to brag about. It's being compared to Wild Nicodle, obviously less powerful of course, but there are similarities there. This deck runs 16 artifacts. It isn't unrealistic to think that you'll have one on the battlefield on turn 2. If you do, especially if you're on the play, there's not much anyone can do to block you. Solid aggro card, takes advantage of your plentiful artifacts, a filler creature, but a good one for this strategy specifically. Not all aggro strategies. Moving up to 2-drops, we of course have a playset of Smuggler's Copter. Again, this card is format defining and we're going to see it for a long time. I'm going to go red in the face explaining this card's worth over and over again. But in this particular deck, the loot ability is more important than normal. Not only is this going to be an annoying piece of garbage that your opponent can't deal with on their own turn, but it's going to enable madness for you like crazy. Best part? All your creatures are the same cost or cheaper than the Copter itself, so you'll be crewing as soon as you want to. Aggressively costed, Madness Enabler, and a solid beater in the air. Everything your Madness aggro deck wants. The last card in the deck, and possibly one of the standouts, is Scrapheap Scrounger of 4 of. This card showed up in a myriad of strategies this past weekend, and there's good reason why. 2 mana for a 3/2 artifact that can recur itself for the same cost is amazing. We're not talking about Despoiler of Souls here. This is way easier to cast, easier to bring back, everything you wanted the Despoiler to be. Chances are some of your creatures are going to die, especially if they're Neonates or Couriers. The Scrounger brings value to your Madness cards even in death. You don't care that it can't block because if we're being honest, you won't block, ever. Why would you? If you're on the back foot, you probably lost already. This is the pinnacle of aggression and a great top end to your creature suite. Red-black aggro is a low-to-the-ground, all-out slugfest. You aren't playing the deck right if you have even a few cards in your hand by turn 4. Your goal is to drop everything you have for the least amount of mana and then swing it until you get a nosebleed or your opponent passes out because they can't handle it. When given the option, always drop Courier turn 1 to get that card advantage engine rolling. Always draw with Key to the City if you can, and always prioritize the Copter attacking above most any other creature. If your opponent's shields are down especially, no reason not to crew the Copter. Even if it's with something like the Scrounger. You need more looting, you need more damage, you just need more, so do it. Man, this deck is sweet. Games end so fast, you're gonna love it. The best part about this deck is that it's even cheaper than the white-red vehicles list we looked at before. It's coming in at around $115, and more than half of that is Smuggler's Copter, so it's not so bad. Even that price is a bit high, honestly, but think about it this way. I know you all love budget decks, but most of those aren't tier 1 competitive. This deck is. For a little over $100, you can get a deck that stands up to anything in the format right now. No making budget choices to hurt your consistency a little bit. You just need the Copters and you're good to go. Seriously, you're tier 1. If you're looking at sideboard options, it's almost completely budget. Galvanic Bombardment is great against other aggressive creature-based decks that are low to the ground. Transgress the Mind neuters control variants, emerge decks, anything huge. That card is seriously the bomb against basically anything that isn't an aggro deck. Reckless Bushwhacker is the nuts against bigger decks as well. Great way to get in for a lot of damage early. Really puts the pressure on them. And if you have the money, Kaladesh is a super bomb against anything creature-based. The dude's a wall without removal to get rid of him, an absolute monster. If you don't have him, not a huge deal, but he is very strong, especially in a meta full of aggro decks. So what do you think about red-black aggro? Is this a deck that you'd consider bringing to F&M? I won't lie, as far as aggressive decks go, this one's sweet. It's basically all in all the time. It's hard to argue with that logic. Make sure to let me know what you think about these tournament deck techs. We are a news channel after all, so I figure it's important to bring you news. Be sure to let me know what you want to see, and I'll do my best to make that happen for you. As always, be sure to subscribe for the latest and most reliable Magic the Gathering information you could ever need. This is the Manosaurus. I'm Wedge. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. This video is brought to you in part by TCGplayer.com. This deck is so cheap, it's so competitive. It's basically the dream scenario. If you want to get started building your crazy red-black aggro deck, you should grab a playset of Bomat Courier, like right now. The card's bonkers, and it's only 80 cents. 80 cents, that's insane. Already have your Couriers, good start. Scrapheap Scrounger is another incredibly powerful card in this deck, and you really need it to be competitive. Good thing it's only $2. $2! New standard is cheap, let me tell you. Click the links, enjoy the cards, we all win, woo!